Harry Potter has an assortment of villains, and it does a great job of making them evil in their own way. We have Voldemort, a psychopathic villain who just wants to live forever and rule the wizarding world. Umbridge, a more composed evil who's sort of sweet on the surface but really awful underneath, and she just sort of wants power for herself. And then there's Bellatrix, this chaotic evil who likes to torture children and lusts after a bold, noseless, evil psychopath, even though she's married. The villains of the series are done well. They have their own personalities, motivations, they bring their own set of circumstances to the story. But Barty Crouch Jr., I think, was this huge opportunity that we lost because he had his soul sucked out at the end of the Goblet of Fire. Because I really think he could have brought us so many great scenes and circumstances. So let me just explain that in this video. Barty Crouch Jr. is our hidden antagonist in the Goblet of Fire, and he does a great job in nurturing Harry through the Triwizard task so that he makes it to the graveyard to resurrect Voldemort at the very end of the year. As plots go, he brings so much to the narrative. There's the whole who put Harry's name in the Goblet of Fire mystery, and then the smaller, but also important, who is stealing from Snape's store cupboard question, as well as the whole Bertha Jorkins, Barty Crouch Sr. stories, where they both seem to go missing during the book. And all of these mysteries find their way back to Barty Crouch Jr. when we get the reveal at the end of the Goblet of Fire. He is at the centre of them all, and that makes the reveal at the end of the Goblet of Fire so satisfying. Because Barty Crouch Jr. isn't just a talented wizard. He isn't just a loyal follower of Voldemort. He's also a master manipulator, and clearly a good enough Occlumens that he can trick even Dumbledore and Snape for an entire year. Just think about that achievement when you learn about occlumency in the following book. Because Snape is good enough to fool Voldemort, and if Barty Crouch is good enough to fool Snape, he also must be a talented duelist if he can best Mad-Eye Moody at the start of the novel in order to capture him and impersonate him. All of that talent, and then the big reveal at the end of the Goblet of Fire, Barty Crouch Jr. loves it. He loves telling Harry how he put his name in the goblet. He loves talking to Harry about Voldemort's return, because he is obsessed and devoted to the Dark Lord. And genuinely, if he hadn't been given the Dementor's kiss at the end of the Goblet of Fire, I think he might have been the best antagonist of the series. Better than Voldemort, better than Bellatrix, better even than Umbridge. And by better, I mean more hated. Now, plot-wise, I know we couldn't keep Barty Crouch Jr. around because that would mean the Ministry in the Order of the Phoenix would know that Voldemort had returned, and therefore the entire plot of this book would change. But just imagine for a second, Barty Crouch Jr. doesn't receive the Dementor's kiss, and he goes to Azkaban. His loyalty to Voldemort doesn't wane in there, oh no. Instead, he is among others who are loyal to Voldemort, like Bellatrix. And so when, in the Order of the Phoenix, we get the mass breakout, much like Bellatrix and the other prisoners, Barty would run off and be reunited with the Dark Lord that he has served so loyally. And much like Bellatrix with Barty Crouch Jr. back out there on the loose again, we now have another exciting and interesting antagonist for us to have some wonderful moments with. And trust me when I say some of his moments would be fantastic. Barty Crouch Jr. in the Department of Mysteries at the end of the Order of the Phoenix. Oh, it would be great. Imagine instead of Lucius Malfoy, Barty leads the group of Death Eaters to retrieve the prophecy. And he comes face to face with Harry, and then he mocks Cedric's death. He points out to Harry that Cedric only died because Harry had to go to the graveyard, really pushing in on Harry's survivor's guilt. He could quip at Harry, making fun of the bond Harry thought he had with Moody, even though it was really with him the previous year. And then later in the battle, when the Order themselves actually show up, Barty could be dueling Mad-Eye Moody. Think of the quips and one-liners we could have had. Barty could make fun of Moody, talking about how he'd held him in a trunk for a whole year, and nobody even noticed that he wasn't the real Mad-Eye. Because Moody is this hardened aura, and we don't really get many moments of vulnerability with him, but if he came face to face with Barty Crouch Jr., with Barty making fun of those things from the year previous, I think we might see some moments of vulnerability from Alistair Moody there. That or some unhinged desire for revenge. Because in the Order of the Phoenix as we have it, Moody doesn't really address the previous year very much. But if Barty Crouch Jr. were still out there somewhere, maybe we would get some interactions between Moody and Harry all about that. Either way, I think having Barty Crouch Jr. in the Department of Mysteries at the end of this book would add some really cool extra dynamics to it, and it would make us as readers hate him even more. Fast forward a year and we have The Half-Blood Prince, and that book ends with Dumbledore's death. Hogwarts is under siege from Death Eaters thanks to Draco Malfoy, and again I think adding Barty Crouch Jr. to this scene would give it some great extra moments. Firstly, since some members of the Order of the Phoenix are there trying to defend the castle, I think having Barty come face to face with them again would give us some great moments, some quips, some sarcasm, but at the top of the astronomy tower, moments before Dumbledore dies, I think that's where things would get interesting. Draco has disarmed Dumbledore, and then the Death Eaters come storming in, the Carrows are there, Bellatrix is there. What if Barty Crouch Jr. was there as well? He storms in, he sees Dumbledore there unarmed, and he knows exactly what's about to happen. He knows Dumbledore is about to die. Dumbledore, who was there to see him as he was sentenced to Azkaban the first time, and the second time. I can imagine Barty Crouch Jr. reveling in that moment. I can see him mocking Dumbledore. Not only did he manage to trick Dumbledore for an entire year into thinking he was Mad-Eye Moody, besting Dumbledore's attempts at protecting Harry, but now he's here to see him die in his very own school. He bested his attempts to defend the castle, and he could really rub that in Dumbledore's face, that no matter what he does, they will always get the better of him. Because I really think Barty Crouch Jr. would be egged on by the fact that the only wizard Voldemort ever feared was about to die, and it would make him even more unhinged. If Barty Crouch Jr. was still alive at the beginning of the Deathly Hallows, he would have to take part in the Battle of the Seven Potters, and I would want him to be the one who kills Mad-Eye Moody. The two of them would have had a dance going on at this point for 4 books, kidnapping and impersonating him in the Goblet of Fire, dueling and mocking him at the end of the Order of the Phoenix, and so it would be a fitting end for him to kill Mad-Eye Moody in the Battle of the Seven Potters in the final book. Plus, if he killed Moody at the beginning of this book, imagine the impact that would have on us as an audience, how much it would make us hate him even more. He would be definitely at Bellatrix or Umbridge levels of hate, completely unhinged, drunk on the power that Voldemort's rise was affording him. He would feel untouchable, and then he defeats Mad-Eye Moody once and for all, and he'd love it, and we would hate him for it. So just a small detail as we move further through the Deathly Hallows, I would love it if after that happened, Barty Crouch Jr. was added to the faculty at Hogwarts. With Snape as headmaster, we see the Carrows become dark arts and Muggle studies professors, but personally I think it would be a really cool callback if Barty Crouch Jr. was put in as the dark arts professor here. Like, I know we don't see too much of that year at Hogwarts because we're following the Horcrux hunt, which happens away from the castle, but just thinking about the fact that he could just rub it in McGonagall and Flitwick's faces all year, making fun of the fact that he tricked them all those years ago in the Goblet of Fire, making fun of the fact that Dumbledore was dead and Voldemort was going to win. I just think it would be a far more significant appointment if Barty Crouch Jr. were appointed as the Dark Arts Professor than one of the Carrows, because Barty Crouch Jr. loved showing Harry's class the unforgivable curses in their 4th year. He loved using the Imperious Curse on them, and so if he were the Dark Arts Professor, he could be in charge of punishment in the castle, and we know that punishment involved using the Cruciatus Curse on first years. Something again I think Barty Crouch Jr. would love, and would make us as readers hate him even more. At least until his eventual downfall, which would be even more satisfying. So the Deathly Hallows culminates in the Battle of Hogwarts, and I think that would be a fitting end for Barty Crouch Jr. after he's been built up as this mega secondary antagonist behind Voldemort. But I think since we already get Bellatrix and Voldemort dying at the climax of the Battle of Hogwarts, if Barty Crouch Jr. died right at the end, it would be a bit of overkill. Too many of those deaths would overshadow each other or pull away from each other's significance. But during the first half of the battle, prior to Harry going to the forest and being killed by Voldemort, I think that would be a great part for Barty Crouch Jr. to get his comeuppance. And if Barty Crouch Jr. was placed at Hogwarts during this book and did make those comments to McGonagall and Flitwick about Dumbledore's death, if he did rub it in and mock them all year, then I would want Harry to witness them being the ones to kill him. A duel in the castle, Barty Crouch Jr. against McGonagall and Flitwick. It would be epic on the scale of the Order of the Phoenix battle between Voldemort and Dumbledore. The magic we'd see, the quips and retorts, McGonagall and Flitwick not pulling their punches, knowing that he'd spent all year using the Cruciatus Curse on first-year students. An epic battle that ends with him eventually being defeated once and for all. Narratively, it would feel like an amazing moment of victory, and I think it would be great if we only got that for a small moment. Because Barty Crouch Jr. is defeated, we're celebrating as readers, and then boom, reality check. We start seeing the bodies of the good guys who have been lost in the battle already. Colin Creevey, Remus Lupin, Tonks, Fred. And then the battle continues as it does in the rest of the book. Harry goes to die, before eventually Voldemort and Bellatrix are defeated, just as they are in the book. If you like this Barty Crouch Jr. story, I made a video talking about another villain of the series, Dolores Umbridge. In this video, I talk about the very worst things that she did and why I think she is the best villain in the series. So I recommend watching that one next if you liked this one.